Okay, the second part of our lecture today in Chapter 1 continues with the principles. So you can see that principles 5, 6, and 7 are up on the screen. Principle 5 deals with how trade can make everyone better off. We all benefit from trade. People can buy a greater variety of goods and services at a lower cost. Countries benefit from trade and specialization as well. You can get a better price abroad for goods that are produced. You can buy other goods more cheaply from abroad than could be produced at home. So there's no one out there that probably grows their own food, makes all their own clothes, cuts their hair, etc. So you can sit there and understand the benefit of trade. Principle 6, markets are usually a good way to organize economic activity. So our definition of a market is a group of buyers and sellers that do not have to necessarily be in a single location. Organize economic activity, quote unquote, means determining what goods and services will be produced, how much of each to produce, and who produces and consumes these goods. A market economy allocates resources. So we're talking about a decentralized decision of many firms and households as they interact in markets. There's a very famous insight by Adam Smith that we'll come back to in later chapters in a book called The Wealth of Nations. And the idea is that each household or firm acts as if you're being led by an invisible hand, quote unquote, to promote general economic well-being. So prices are determined by the interaction of buyers and sellers. Okay, so a price is just not arbitrarily set. The price is very much a function of that interaction between buyers and sellers. So a price reflects the good's value to buyers. It also reflects the cost of producing the good from a firm. So the idea of the invisible hand means that prices guide self-interested households and firms to make decisions that maximize society's economic well-being. Principle 7, governments can sometimes improve economic or market outcomes. The government enforces property rights. The government enforces rules and maintains institutions that are key to a market economy. People are less inclined to work, produce, invest, or purchase if large risks of their property are going to be stolen. The government can also promote efficiency, avoid market failures. Markets left on its own fails to allocate resources efficiently. So if that happens, what can the government do to correct that? Something called an externality is a source of a market failure. So externalities, you can have negative externalities, you can also have positive externalities. An example of a negative externality could be pollution. So the production or consumption of a good affects other people. And pollution obviously would be negative. Market power is also a source of a market failure. So if you have a single buyer or seller that has substantial influence on a market price, a monopoly is an example, then the government's going to come in and make the appropriate adjustments. The government wants to promote equality. So avoid disparities in economic well-being. So use taxes or welfare policies to change how the economic pie is divided. I'm going to put up here another active learning, okay? Like you did before with the first one, I want you to read through this. Excuse me, I jumped ahead there. Read through each of these situations and jot down your opinion as to whether the government's intervention improves the outcome. And we'll discuss these in class. Three more principles here, principle 8, 9, and 10. These two, 9 and 10, we are not going to discuss here in this particular lecture. So I'm going to end with principle 8. A country's standard of living depends on its ability to produce goods and services. So there is very large variations in standard of living across countries and over time. Average income in rich companies, or countries rather, not companies, the average income is more than 10 times the average income in poor countries. The U.S. standard of living as it is today is about 8 times larger than what it was 100 years ago. Productivity. Productivity is the most important determinant of living standards. So productivity refers to the quantity of goods and services produced from each unit of labor input. Very much depends on the equipment, the skills, and the technology available to workers. There are other factors such as labor unions, competition from abroad, and these have a far less impact on living standards. And that is where we will end your first chapter 1 lecture. So any of the extra slides that we did not get to, you're not responsible for, so you can cross those out.